This is the concluding video of Chapter 17. We're reading from The Rape of the Mind by Mind.wmv. In one case of a young man who had spent years in a concentration camp after a thorough brainwashing by the Nazis, the process of rehabilitation lasted nearly 2 years. The victim emerged from it without mental scars and was even strengthened by his bitter experience. I am convinced that in the case of prisoners who were for years in a totalitarian prison and were consequently politically conditioned, a cathartic psychotherapeutic approach will help them to find their old inner selves once more. Threats and aggressive discussions would only be a continuation of the same coercive brainwashing process their jailers used. The best therapy for them is the daily contact and exchange with the free democratic world, as we have seen proven in so many cases of ex-prisoners of the totalitarian machine. Free air is for them the best therapy. For the millions of children who from the cradle are pressed into the framework of mental automatization, no such option for freedom exists. For them there is no other world, there are no other beliefs. There is only the all-consuming totalitarian Moloch, in whose service every means and every deed is justified. Brainwashers are very naive in thinking that the enforced reformation of the mind, the transformation of capitalist prisoners into communist propagandists, will be permanent. For the first few weeks after their return to a normal environment, the ex-prisoner will speak the language he has been taught. He will recite his piece, but then, and often suddenly and surprisingly, his old self comes back. If the victim has a chance to investigate and examine the communist propaganda and accusations, the whole artificial nightmare will fall away. For this reason, the jailers are careful not to dismiss all their converts at once. A few must stay behind as hostages to assure that those who are released will not expose the whole plot and thus endanger their friends in jail. Those who do tell the truth on their return home feel guilty because their revelations may expose the hostages to even greater torture. I have been fascinated by a peculiar character trait that makes for courage and endurance. I called it in my study on the problem of the time, the sense of continuity, the awareness that our experiences now are not only chained to our experiences from the past, but also to our image and fantasy of a future. We live in a world where we accept too much of the actual occurrences without asking why and for what all this happens. Those who think of planning for the future are sneeringly called utopianists, as if the idea of utopia had not always sprung from human yearning. Our ancestors believed in the future, the coming of Christ, the coming of the Messiah, the kingdom of God. They anticipated and worked for a better epoch. The people in the concentration camps who believed in the future, who believed in a plan, who could see their actual calamity as a small chain between past and future, could endure better than their temporary suffering. I had the privilege of knowing people who belonged to the few kernels of strength who were able to do more than exist passively and borrow strength from others. They were able to live courageously under the extreme stress of the Nazi concentration camp. They accepted the camp and the persecution as a challenge to their minds. Physical pain did not touch them. The abnormal circumstances stimulated their spirit. They lived beyond the circumstances. The morale of these people inspired others. They lived by fortifying and helping others. They accepted the Spinozistic amor fati, the love and acceptance of fate. They are living proof that the mind can be stronger than the body. The new courage. Philosophy and psychology have made us aware of new challenges and new courage. Socrates, over 2,000 years ago, considered bravery a spiritual courage which goes far beyond the courage of physical battle. A soldier can be aggressive and have contempt for death without being brave. His rashness can be a suicidal foolhardiness inspired by a collective elan. This may be the panicky courage of the unaware primitive infant in us. There is also a spiritual bravery, a mental courage that goes beyond the self. It serves an idea. It asks not only what the price of life is, but also for what the price is being asked. It asks for a hyper-consciousness of the self as a thinking spiritual being. It is only comparatively recently that spiritual courage has been esteemed. Socrates' notion that notion has taken a long time to seep into our thinking. It was only after the Reformation that the heroic struggle of the lonely, battling personality gained value. To defend your own dissenting opinion courageously, even against the pressure of a majority opinion, acquired a heroic color, especially where nonconformism and heresy were forbidden. Gee, that sounds like today's world, doesn't it? Gandhi's quiet and stubborn campaign of passive resistance is today considered more courageous than the bravery of the soldier who throws himself into the ecstasy of battle. Spiritual bravery is not found among the conformists, or among those who preach uniformity, or among those who plead for smooth social adjustment. It requires continued mental alertness and spiritual strength to resist the dragging current of conformist thought. Man has to be stronger than the mere will for self-protection and self-assertion. He has to be able to go beyond himself in the service of an idea, and has to be able to acknowledge loyally that he has been wrong when higher values are found. Indeed, there is a spiritual courage that goes beyond all automatic reflex action. Man is not only a mass, a piece of kneaded dough, he is also a personality. He dares to confront the human masses as he confronts the entire world, as a thinking human being. Consciousness, alert awareness are themselves a form of courage, a lonely exploration and a confrontation of values. Such courage dares to break through old traditions, taboos, prejudices, and dares to doubt dogma. The heroes of the mind do not know the fanfare, the pathetic show, the pseudo-courage of exaltation and glory. These brave heroes fight their inner battle against rigidity, cowardice, and the wish to surrender conviction for the sake of ease. This courage is like remaining awake when others want to soothe themselves with sleep and oblivion. Totalitarian ideology is able to blackmail man through his inner cowardice. It threatens him into surrendering his innermost convictions in exchange for glamour and acceptance, for hero worship, for honor and acknowledgement. Yet the true hero is true to his ideals. Only when people have learned to accept individual responsibility can the world be helped by the combined efforts of many individuals. Don't imitate the master, don't merely identify with the leader, but if you do conform, accept his lead with the full recognition of your own responsibility. Such heroism of the spirit is only possible if you are the master of your emotions and in full control of your aggressions. The new hero will not be recognized because of his muscles or aggressive power, but because of his character, his wisdom, and his mental proportions. Intimate knowledge of bravery dethrones most of the popular notions about it as an exalted fascination. Psychological knowledge fosters new forms of courage, demanding exhausting labor, the labor of thought rather than the easy work of recklessness. I cannot take any other option than for this enduring courage of life, courage that no longer embodies the magic attraction of suicide and decline. Courage should be the vivid faith in and the alert awareness and the sound consideration of all that moves life. Such courage accepts the great fear behind all the mysteries of life and dares to live with it. The Nazis were very much aware of the existence of unbendable heroes among their victims, whose faces could not be changed, whose minds could not be coerced. They called their calmness and stubborn will physiognomic insubordination, and they tried to kill these heroes as soon as they were discovered. Happily, the jailers had many blind spots when it came to detecting spiritual greatness. When the war was over, most of these heroes disappeared modestly into the crowd after their mission was fulfilled, leaving leadership to the more sophisticated politicians. And that, my friends, was chapter 17. We have one more chapter to go, and we are reading from The Rape of the Mind by Juice A. Merleau, MD. Hola. Blanca.